And I also teach in Keys.
Recording in progress.
Right, there we go. I also teach in Keys. I teach in Austria. And if you are interested in teaching abroad, great. If you're not, you should be. And we have partnerships with lots of institutions. Keys is one of them. And my regret about Keys is that I waited so long to get involved. I wish I would have started it much earlier. So if you have any interest in teaching abroad, it's a great experience. Students, I mean, you want to see student growth, it's a big deal. They really grow a lot during that time. Okay, so the very first question I want to ask is, tell us about the award that you won and what work you did to win that award. We won't always start here. We'll start down there.
Forget one of the words, but do you want me to start? Well, okay. Oh, so the reason we're doing this is because we co-won this award. So that's why we're like, how should we start? So if you, well, I'll give the spiel from the beginning of our other presentation. A few years ago, Charlotte and I kept kind of noticing some conversations that we were having that were in common with our students. So the English major, kind of a little bit like the business major, is broad, right? There's a lot of different career pathways. And so on the English side of the house, we have 3 undergraduate majors. We have, or programs. We have the BA in English, we have a BA in English teaching, and then a BA in English and history teaching, which is an interdisciplinary. And so Charlotte and I kept noticing that students would come to us with these kinds of questions. The first question would be like, what does the career pathway kind of look like? I want to be a publisher when I grow up, or whatever, right? So like, what is that? What are those steps in between? Because sometimes there's confusion about how to get from A to that goal. And then on my kind of side of the house with English teaching, I had students, particularly post-COVID, but I still see this a little bit, unfortunately, come into my office their senior year in tears. I don't want to be a teacher anymore. Now what? And I'm getting ready to graduate. What does this look like? And so we just had some casual conversations about how can we support and help our students? And then we developed this course. Do you want to talk about that, Mark?
Yeah, so I mean, we did start tossing around the idea of, we both knew of a couple other departments on campus, psychology or design, that had a specific career development course in their discipline. And so we knew some people who had already started initiatives like this, and we kept thinking through what could we do for the majors. Then we were also supported by our dean. She generously supported us so that we could actually attend the online institute by the governing organization in our discipline, the Modern Language Association, that was specifically focused on developing career readiness in humanities majors. And so that was immensely helpful. And from some of the ideas we gained from that, and some of our ideas from colleagues here at EKU and our own brainstorming, we were able to develop, have approved and launch a whole career development program. Got shadowing partnership experiences, sort of built-in mini internship experiences built right into the course. And students do not have to seek an unpaid internship outside of portfolio, which we felt very strongly about. And then also an alumni board of successful professional alumni that come back and talk with students. We won the award, I guess. Well, sorry, the award we won. I really did bring this because I was afraid I would forget all the wording. It was the Faculty Center for Teaching and Learning Annual Themed Award. This was in April 24. And the year's theme was Workforce and Employability Skills, Teaching and Learning for Future Careers.
So every year, it's my understanding now that every year there's a new teaching themed award, and it's kind of connected with what's happening at Pedagogicon and the theme of that conference. And so ours just happened to fit really nicely with this opportunity.
Thank you.
So I won this year, and I didn't won as well, the Innovation in Teaching Award. Mine was about adding the element of mystery in the classroom, because the major in which I teach in IT, and IT is everywhere. It's like the infrastructure, right? You go in and you turn the tap on, the water is there, electricity is there, and Wi-Fi is there, right? Everyone expected. If that doesn't work, you're sent home, right? Because they're not doing what else can they do? But the problem which our students, like, they have to integrate with existing systems on shoestring budgets, and new technology is coming out. So while you're still working in the present with what you have, A student of mine shared a joke. He said, well, if the IT is working, people say, well, what are these IT staff doing? They just sit around and do nothing. And if it's not working, what are they doing? Why is it not working? So no matter what they do, they get a little bit, in the hot seat all the time. So we wanted to introduce activities which will make sure that students are put in positions where they do not know how to solve the problem. So because these are unstructured situations, and if you make it like a game of some kind, then it is much more likely that they'll be able to solve for that. And bringing a playful mindset to a very stressful situation is perhaps the best thing you can have, because if you get stressed, then there's less oxygen going up there. You will be able to think your way through what needs to be done. And so, and I must tell you that it hasn't gone smoothly, and I was sharing that with my panel members earlier, that some of things I almost pulled some of the activities out, but our advisory members say, no, that's essential. That's like one of the key skills, which the students may not always like it, but it is essential. So I think if we can have them use that, that would be very good. Makes the future more positive.
Thank you.
Okay, so it's good we are sitting next to each other. So I also won the Innovation in Teaching Award. And it was my narrative. I talked about experiential learning and service learning pedagogy that I've been using in some of my classes for, wow, I guess about 10 years at this point. But I really focused on a more recent project in one of my graduate courses in our Master's in English and Writing Professions program, which really emphasizes, I think, employability skills. We did a collaboration with some librarians here at EKU, so it was in-house. And my students created an edited collection of manuscript poems from our special collections and archives. And I was telling the panelist members that I just found out earlier this week that the collection that they put together as an OER just went live. So that's really exciting. I was also able to present at a conference, a professional conference with these students back in the spring, which was a great kind of professional development for the students. And yeah, so I'll maybe save some more stuff for our conversation.
Thanks.
Well, in true Halloween fashion, I won the Transformational Educator Award. So this is Transformer Mask. It goes from a mask to a person. And so why I won this award is twofold. One, from a classroom perspective, I really focus on what is it that I want the student to be at the end, right? What is the whole person? What is that professional that we need? So what does they need to know? What do they need to be able to do? And what are they going to be ready to do after they leave? So from a classroom perspective, demonstrated some things that I do in order to do that. Some is service learning, different service learning. Things that we do, for example, we run a tax clinic. I teach accounting, so we actually have real clients come in and our students do real tax returns. So that was one side from a classroom perspective, and then the other side of the transformational was more from a college level and the assessment side of my role. And that is really looking at, if we're a school of opportunity as a university, and that's our mission, then that means that sometimes we get students who are underprepared. And when the school was built, and King Johnson building, and a couple presidents ago like to really tout this piece, but the King Johnson building here was built with marble. And it was so fancy at the time, not so much anymore. But the reason was because that president at that time really wanted the students to experience something and be prepared to be in that kind of a scenario. And so as a college and the College of Business, if we have these students who may not be prepared for that, we want to be able to see that and we want to be able to measure that. And so from an assessment perspective, what we're working towards, we're not there yet, but we develop competencies based on what employers are really demanding, and alumni, and got all that feedback. Collectively, unanimously, the faculty agreed on 5 competencies unanimously. I don't know it's a little bit difficult to do sometimes. So we were able to do that, and now we're designing these measures so that we can try to measure transformation. So what are they like when they come in? And then what are they like when they leave? So that's why I got the transformation.
That's wonderful. Yeah, that's great. I should have said that we're gonna have, I don't know, a few more questions for the panel, but we're gonna have time for you to ask the panel questions at the end. So, start thinking about what you want to know from this very esteemed group. The second question is, what did you learn from this process that you would like to share with these new faculty? And maybe we'll start down.
And you mean like the process of the award?
Yeah, the process of
application
the
and
award.
everything?
Yeah, that's right.
That I don't do a good job of tracking what I do.
Ah,
That's the hardest thing for me. I'm always in the moment, transforming. I'm always changing things. And really being able to stop and capture it, is the difficult side for me. So that's really what I learned, is that I need to do a better job of being able to check my transformation and capture that. So
Yeah,
start your list, start
yeah,
your.
documenting your
Sorry,
work,
things.
documenting everything, that
Yeah.
is gonna make your life easier later on. Thank you.
Yeah, I would say mine is that, but then also I think making the connections between what I've been doing for a long time. And so I had mentioned earlier that I started doing service learning pedagogy in my classes, I guess in like my second or third year here at EKU. And I was doing that at the undergraduate level. And then, you know, for some reason, it just didn't quite click that like, oh, I could also be doing this with my graduate students as well, where that could also be really impactful. And so figuring out ways to make that more accessible to the graduate students, because many of our graduate students are they already have full-time jobs, right? Like some of them are teachers. And so, so asking them to do something like out in the community seems like maybe like not accessible to them. So the process that we're writing this narrative made me see those connections between what I've been doing like a decade ago and then what I'm currently doing. And I think that's really helpful to see how it all kind of goes together.
Great, thank you.
I would say a little bit of offline time where we just sit and jot down things again and again, rephrase things, try to articulate what is it that is really innovative about it, and look across not just one course, but multiple courses. And also not be afraid to apply again and again, for different things. So this is not, it's not like this is the first time I applied and I won. I had applied for it in previous year. But I think being able to think about, okay, what is truly innovative about what I'm doing and how it can help others, that help. And getting the recommendations and from students, these things take time. So it's better to start a little earlier than later.
So this is a little rich coming from the English major, but I think it's important to think about how we narrate what we do, how we tell the story of what we do. So it's really important to keep kind of those lists of like, keep your CV up to date, because you never know, the dean is going to say, I need a copy of that right now for whatever. And so keep that up to date, always kind of add those pieces, but how do all of those pieces kind of connect, or what patterns are happening? Because you'll find over time that kind of your career trajectory morphs in a positive way, right? Based on the things that you've been interested in. And so how you tell that story. The project that Charlotte and I developed came from stories, students sharing their stories with us. And then Charlotte and I kind of casually in the hallway saying, hey, did you hear about this particular student? How can we help them? And so keep thinking about how to narrate that.
And then I would just add, we've had some themes already coming out of innovation and transformation. And so my thing I wrote down for this question was just to seek out mentors, seek out those clutch, go-to people that you can go to and ask questions and what's possible. How can I have this idea? I have this dream. How can I make this happen? How can you help me? What resources can I tap into? And just don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to pitch an idea for a new course or a course redesign. Right? But assemble your sort of go-tos that can help you do that in a way that's going to be meaningful.
Great. I mean, obviously, these are these people are those go-to people, but there are people in your department too, who are the go-to people for probably lots of different things, but there's probably one for, or at least one for teaching. There's that person who is the teaching focused person, or that, you know, and so, yeah, reach out to those people. They're very valuable. Okay, so thinking more broadly about your teaching career, what's one change that you've made that you would like to share, that's made the most difference to you? We'll start with Sharon.
Yeah, so I went a little different direction when I thought about this question. I put down willingness to think outside the box. And for me, you know, I came out of a PhD program in American literature, which was wonderful, and I absolutely adore teaching American literature, but, you know, this career, this glorious, precious thing you've got here stretching out in front of you, you're gonna have chances to innovate and do some really neat things that you don't even know yet what you're gonna get to do. And so just think outside the box. I was able to come up with interdisciplinary topics courses for the honors program at EKU. It's an area of the university that really honors interdisciplinarity and this kind of innovative thinking and course design. But I was able to come up with topics for this class by conversing with friends and colleagues in other departments, from history to, she was a French professor, and now she works with the honors program, but I'm explaining a course with her, to environmental health science. You know, I did an interdisciplinary course that related to that and literature. And in my own department, I got Vigs in my head for a graphic novels course, on graphic novels. We didn't have one yet. And I just really thought it would complement our other offerings and that students would really get into it. So I designed and launched the course myself, and it was over full the very first time it was offered. And so just, you know, don't be afraid to think outside the box.
Yeah.
And follow that dream.
That's great.
So for me, it's bringing students in. So my kind of trajectory is a little different in that I did my undergraduate and my first MA, and then there's about a decade in between when I went back to graduate school and did an MA and PhD. And I had to learn a lot between, because there had been that gap. I really had to kind of learn. And one of the things I learned was about how to promote myself, which was something that I was really uncomfortable doing, but I had to learn that really quickly. And so one of the things I did at the end of my PhD program that I was permitted to do was I brought a group of students to SAMLA, the South Atlantic Modern Language Association conference, and they were undergrads. And it was the first year that that conference had allowed undergraduate students to present. And it really was a game changer for these students. And in fact, one of those students went on to grad school and spoke to one of my classes recently this year. So it's kind of cool, full circle. And so when I got here, one of the things I did is I talked to Charlotte. We were talking about go-to people earlier, and I said, what if we took some students from EKU to SAML and we took them? What if we worked together? What if I worked with some of my students? One of the things that happened when I first got here and I was working with future teachers is there was a socio-political narrative that was particularly negative and extreme compared to other areas of the country at that time about teachers, directed towards teachers. And so I wanted to give future teachers this opportunity to use their voice in a really, in an environment that was really supportive. And so then we started kind of writing for regional journals, such as the Kentucky English Bulletin, or even national ones like the New Jersey English Journal, and publishing. And just, it wasn't really about they're going to grad school, although they may, and that's great. But it was more about helping them use their professional voice even before they enter the profession. And so I think bringing students along with you and kind of helping them prepare.
So for me, it's been about sharing my vulnerability about things I care about. So I like to draw, but I'm very terrible at it. So in my courses, like in particular for this innovation award, one of the activities I introduced, and it's really works very well around Halloween time, is towards the end of the semester, students have set up their networks, and I want them to actually intentionally add what I call network gremlins into their network, and then I invite other people to come and try to find the gremlin. So this becomes more like a game, right? And then I say, well, and I sketch I say, well, you need to draw your gremlin as well. So this is like totally left field, right? They'll not understand why am I having them. Initially, they are assistive, but then I sketch something and I have them take their phones out and say, this is what a gremlin might look like. And I sketch on the board and it looks pretty pathetic, but others, and then there are some students who are really, really good. And actually this came out of me watching that when students in my classes are sitting and they doodle. And some of the doodles are incredibly like detailed because they are from the graphics area, right? Our students are multimedia, some of them are multimedia focused. And I say, how do you do that? And I often take their photos and I will try to practice at home. So being able to share that about things you care about, and when they know that they are also not afraid then, because people model what they live and experience rather than what is said. So I feel like it gives them confidence because they are learning things they care about. Yeah.
I feel like mine is sort of like a combination of a lot of the things that have already been said. But I think like collaboration is sort of like my biggest takeaway from all of this, because I think previously, I don't know, in some ways teaching felt very isolated. Like I, was assigned these classes to teach and then, I would, write my syllabus and go teach the classes, right? So it's this very sort of like individual sort of effort, but through service learning and experiential learning, I collaborate with all kinds of different people, and the students are very much a part of that collaboration too. And they get to see that sometimes things don't always work the way that you want them to work. And so there's an element of vulnerability there as well. But I think that's so like instructive for the students. And it's also like, it keeps me on my toes too, and it keeps me really engaged in the process. And I've gotten to know some colleagues, especially in the library, so much better through these projects. And that's been really wonderful for me. It's just as a teacher.
So I'd say mine's twofold, that have kind of changed mine, and that is one, if I'm going to be transformational, I have to be willing to be transformed. And that means what I think may be working. If it's not working, I need to be willing to change it. And so constantly changing how I teach, what I teach, the technologies that I use to teach. So for example, we were talking about at our table earlier, I moved one class totally away from a textbook. And I created everything. Well, I didn't create it. I take that back. I used Perusall, a system where I was able to pull tax regulations, so real world documents, real world things, and then connect the students through Perusall and creating my content and having them do different things. So I'm willing to use that, willing to fail and be like, the students are like, I can't access this. I'm sorry, I'm learning like you're learning. We'll figure it out together. And trying to kind of do that. So I had to be willing to be vulnerable and transform with them as I continually update my teaching. The other way I do that too is thinking about the design of it. And again, with the transformational, is really thinking about what is it that I want them to be able to like next step when they graduate. So for example, in my tax class, I want students to be able to pick up a tax return and be like, oh yeah, this is what's going on. I know I can, and I can talk to a taxpayer about that. And in order for them to be able to do that, I have to backwards design my class. And you may have heard of that before, maybe. If not, there are tons of lessons about it in the Teaching and Learning Center here. But thinking about if I want them to be able to do that, what is it that they have to know? Knowledge, concepts, textbook vocabulary, and then what is it they have to do? What kind of calculations, what kind of things are they going to have to be able to actually do so that they can do that next step? And that would be the skill part. And so that's really changed and transformed the way that I teach. And then the second piece, kind of like Chandra said, is that the caring piece. Students, we were working on something the other day and their response was, well, I don't attend class because I know the teacher doesn't care. Okay, so obviously it matters to them if we care, and it makes such a difference when they realize that you care about their learning, you care about their career, you care about them as a person, and it makes their learning better. So, which is the end goal. So, yeah.
That's great. It's wonderful. All right, one more question. And the question is, what advice would you give to these people so that they can become award-winning teachers? We'll start.
Okay. Well, back to my thing, I guess. Be a transformer, meaning continually change, continually willing to do new things, innovate, try the things that they mentioned up here so that you can be a transformer, transform things. So keep trying.
Yeah, I think just like, yeah, an openness to change and try new things is really important. And then I would also say too, like, get to know other people on campus that you could potentially collaborate with, because it can be really fun and really rewarding to do that. And I think that in those classes where I have done that, I feel like the students, like, they're getting more out of it because they're having these like authentic experiences with professionals other than me, right? So I would recommend like collaborate with people on campus.
Yeah, I think, what Erin said is very important, be able to provide, authentic experiences to the students. We need to be also open to, we may apply and we may not win, and then take a real close look at what happened. And be able to reframe it. So being a little resilient, like, so often we expect that the first time we apply for something, we may not win, we may win or not win at all. It's like the publication process, they send comments back and you just have to set it aside. And you want it, you can come back and look at it and say, okay, this is what I need to do. And I think that can make a difference because, for example, this year I also applied for the award which you won. From that, I actually took what came out of that, and I'm a student who just got back from the presentation which we done in Las Vegas about employability skills. And the keynote speaker addressed like some of those points as well, which we were talking about. So I feel like for the student, it was a wonderful learning experience. So things can come out of what sometimes we perceive as a negative outcome. We just have to tweak it and see what else can come out of it. That's what I would say.
So like most advice, I don't necessarily follow my own advice very well. But one of the things I've been trying to work on is to be unbusy. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm not busy. It just means that I'm taking the time to kind of have conversations when those opportunities arise, or making the space for those conversations, which is really difficult to do sometimes in this environment. And one of the ways I do this with students, and I've always done this is good practice, is I hold instructor conferences, but I hold them earlier in the project. So early in my career, I held them kind of later in whatever they were working on. And now I hold them kind of earlier at the very beginning, maybe right after a proposal type stage. So we can kind of work through tweaks. It helps students feel less frustrated, but it also helps me to get to know students in a way, in that one-on-one kind of way that I might not get to know them holistically in the classroom because they're trying to do so many things, or maybe they share something with me. And I'm not saying counseling, I'm not counseling my students, but in that sense, but they might tell me something that really is this aha moment of, oh, I understand now why you didn't turn in things for these 2 weeks. Or I understand now why you're struggling with this concept. And it helps me to be a better educator and help them to make those connections.
Just off the heels of Heather's comment, I would say that just on a pure pedagogical level, yeah, I think as many new faculty, we're like content. I've got so much content in my brain. I'm just arrived at a PhD and the truth is it's so valuable to just stop and set aside those class meetings. Yes, before the midpoint of the semester, where you kind of check in with your students. How are you feeling about how your course progress is going? What plans can we help you form a successful rest of your semester? What's going on with you? That kind of thing is just super valuable to the learning process as well. Of course, content is incredibly valuable, but those days, it's not a regret to set those couple of days aside for things like that. But just more broadly, I was just going to say, attend the PD opportunities. We've got so much amazing PD on this campus for you. Forge those connections with faculty and resources across campus. You know, like Erin said, it's such a good point. I mean, there's so many wonderful collaborators out there potentially for you. And then just consistently review and reflect on your practice. Don't be afraid to change things up. Well, also, I would add the caveat, stay true to know what you know to be your greatest strengths. And that's, know thyself and don't be afraid to, innovate technologically, but keep some core principle underneath it about how you work with students or something, right? That's going to always feel important.
Wonderful. I would just add, the pandemic really was a huge transformational experience for all of us, but as an instructor, what I learned during the pandemic was much more about our
along those lines, I think about. Providing that to other people, their evaluation. There are a lot of amazing things that you can plan quickly and efficiently with AI. Our students are learning how to use it. They're going to have to use it on the job. So if we can get ahead of it, we try and do the things that we do and are taking time to do. Then it's a lot of inspiration there that's
What do you have questions from the online?
We are troubleshooting a few Zoom audio issues here, so I'm being creative right now, but I will get some questions. This has tested my Zoom abilities. I'll try to get some questions from Zoom here, though.
Yes.
college,
Yeah,
I mean, university.
my advice is, that don't do that.
No,
No,
not yet.
you're a first year back, don't do that. You'll get a chance, those options will come as you get promoted. But yeah, I think it's committees, but it's also, TL, TLIs and. Yeah, I don't know what else. So, if you have any, give advice, come to me, they're doing this in the, which is well, monitoring the, and also you have about, if you want to make sure that this is what they are doing, record logs and they don't need to be posting that. Well, I thought it was more, back in the Senate. I had to share the fact we sent in the past, and I can tell you that, it's a challenge when you have new faculty who are senators. It's some ways not preferred, you can prefer to have people who know the institution a little bit better. On the other hand, it's good to have new perspective. If it's a bunch of old people like me, then, we've got a very set perspective. And you all bring newer, younger, fresh perspective. And so I've met a lot of people that thought, I was senator before chair. And when I was a senator, you see people in college, and you're the president, the program, so even if you're not a senator, you attend faculty meetings, they are stimulating, but there are important people who are there and can talk and learn stuff that you don't listen to all the. Yes.
So first of all, thank you so much for sharing your inspirations. This is extremely helpful. Folks here, I'm just wondering, this is going to be Chandra and how long does it take to like test a certain idea that you introduce to the class? You mentioned that, it takes some time because we got students and we want to like how much experts
Find out what it is, look at all, and then come up with exactly the same kind of protocol. Because in the end, I was trying to think process rather than a product, which is what, you also suggested. You don't have to, and it's pretty discouraging, I'm saying, if you look at that, and you say, well, it's all over the map. So the results are not what I wanted, I almost took it out. And then I spoke with an advisory committee member, I was thinking, well, I thought it was a good idea, but it's really bomb. So it's simple, but that's what we do. Because I'm frequently on top of ladders somewhere or in closets and I'm opening things which have part of the scratched off and I have to, something's not working and I have to figure out what it is. I don't even know what it is. So it's a mystery component, right? So if you know you're trying to do the right thing, you don't be discouraged by outcomes which you are not expecting. You can say, I need to add more structure so that the uncertainty can be resolved, in a more fun way, right? Because when you bring that investigative, like gaming kind of attitude to the world, then they don't mind collaborating, they come up with more creative answers. That's much more conducive to the final solution, even though it may not be what it should be. They may find out that, okay, I have a certain mindset that it should work like this, but they may come up with something which is maybe takes shortcuts in different ways that we have expected. Just stick with it.
Sometimes students feedback on evaluations or after the project, like if you want something inside of that, then of course help me kind of think about and walking through like what wasn't working, what did I think was working well that really wasn't working. And I just have to say that I think I have something really well developed that I'm really happy with, and then I teach it one semester to a different group of students, and all of a sudden it changes the whole game. So I don't know if I've ever been able to fully get to like, yeah, I'm satisfied with a part of it, but not necessarily all of the parts, if that makes sense. Yeah.
What else do you need in the chat?
We're good on the chat right now.
So I take pride in teaching, thanking students. That's what I mentioned, not that, yeah, I don't have a strong academic background, it's had a few years. So scholarship is probably out on my, how am I going to achieve that? Do I have any suggestions or have you been able to take things you've done in the classroom to, don't teaching, high quality teaching things and turn that into scholarship opportunity? It's how to
I do this a lot, but I kind of think of it as a two-pronged approach. So there's this long-term thing that I want to be doing that I'm chipping away. And then if you think about the big thing that's right, then I'm also thinking about how can I use cellular scholarship in teaching and learning that to enable me to probably be able to think about those teaching. So like while I was working on my book and I was publishing things that observations in the classroom or higher studies or different things that would have to be in the class, like publishing that way. So it's kind of in two different directions.
I found it so similar by history. And I started to see what kind of studies they publish. And one of the things I learned was that I had an image in my head of what a study would have to be in order to be published, and that was wrong. And it turns out, oh no, there's a bunch of other kinds of things that can be published. If you publish that these other things were, much more fluid. In my mind, I was like, oh, that's something I can see myself doing. Whereas, in my head is, really full blown, only a family, something, this whole thing, I think people probably those things, most often. People that, when you have a lot of time and resources spent on that, I know. But there are other things that are public, like the water gas. Those heroes that are, not less important or less meaningful, but typically style, typically, growth. So how would, this, how do you, your solo journal, your contribution?
That I would add is, you have an active advisory committee. When you bring something from one, you must bring for an extension of the technology with your students. They involve the student and with advisory member or the joint presentation or publication to allow you to have opportunity. Because it's for connection with your students, you need to go and follow up with them, then you can do and like that. So rather than just be product into it's the process.
I would say, if you're on the right track, and we all have our disciplinary scholarship that we love. But solo is something that we could all be doing because we are all trying new things, right? We're trying to do the best we can, we're trying to be innovative, transformational, and so we're trying stuff. And really solo is the key basis of planning it out, writing it out, reflecting on it, getting it out there. So we're doing a lot of the work, we're doing just by teaching our classes. So solo is sort of a sweet spot. It's, two legs of that stool come together, and that I think is been really efficient.
I was able to participate with undergraduate and graduate students and with Alex is saying and in the idea here that then any ideas which you are using which will learning to make it
but pedagogical is so great, and it's right here, it's very friendly, it's great. The people come from all over the state, all over the world, it covers us, but it's, so manageable, it's at a good time of the year, so that, I've learned a lot.
And my thing will be to start with your most favorite thing. Start with your favorite thing that you do in teaching, figure out how it's new, different, how somebody else will want to hear about it. And what it is that you do that makes it great. And then that's what start with.
Yes, one more. Yeah.
How do you all prepare or track or remember what you're supposed to write down? Or maybe you spend your things and like you wanted to mention that you do like, I don't know what I do, I just do it. Like, how do you remember to write these things down so it doesn't come to the time where, okay. Yeah, so I think it's been mentor for a while, I think for college. Basically, after benefit review period for the current year or the next year, and just like I talked about, nothing else would not have to be revised for us to be flat like that. With that a little bit, 1, 2, 3 years all year, notes, 5% of it is scholarship conference or maybe this is connection with library IML, submitting to this other conference there, just keep that in and then it's time to really sit down and draft narratives. Well, the first year, right? So this will be fall or second. Right. Really valuable, really powerful process. And so that's something And then an article that we presented at everybody's conference, so scaffolding and scholarly work with every day. Yeah, because we got them, stay after the right.
I schedule it on my calendar, so the first of the month, like, update that. So did I go to a workshop? Did I go to a conference? Because that sounds silly, but one time I forgot a conference that I went to because I didn't capture it like the moment. So now I just schedule it, like the first of every month, like I go and I check, like, what did I do this past month that I would want to include, in document? Yes, so yeah, absolutely. So, that actually works really well. And I would also say, I always, when I was in that process of doing that review, try to do it over the summer. Because when the fall semester starts, it just like, yeah, which sounds awful. I'm sorry to say those words. It's a kindness to your future self.
And put all the, Charlotte mentioned the documentation, so it will ask you like. Purchase, but whatever, like through, so like the conference program or whatever, making sure you put all that. Over to participating and show it. To create these folders and calls, all of it right now, it's just times that you have it all, it's not as hard when you start jumping into it.
That I would add is that so all of us have this specific providers as one note, and one note and also next idea. So again, we're write the documentation, and you can write just notes to yourself, you have that one and I experienced my dad just connecting with anyway. It's especially important if you're doing the experience process and the things again. Quite disorganized. So that's like one exercise, that's one plan for the officer to get more organized. Because the magic each needs to be more organized. If I can show that I'm more organized.
I do two things. One is I'm searching on that old side, but I have folders for those hard documents that you have, a teaching folder, a scholarship, and a service folder, and just dump like as soon as it happens, I put it in there. And then on the technology side, like today, for example, print the PDF, your invitation, your email calendar, just so that you have it, put it in that electronic folder. But I will do all three folders separate. Just so that you're not later having to parse out what's what. So just put that into a teaching service and scholarship folder, whether hard copy or. So.
Everything you say is that you're gonna do it every year.
Yeah.
Right? And so you deal with it last year, and you'll deal with that. And we actually expect our faculty to do that, like, you're not talking about the things that we said last year, you're missing something, so pay attention to the feedback you get. Until the next year, you've got all that stuff, plus all this year's stuff you have add into it, but I found very helpful associated with folder where I really felt that trap of not having documentation. It's been 5 or 7 years, and I was like, I hadn't been doing that in years, so I was like, what did I do 5 years ago? I have no idea what it is, but so that's a good thing about that. Being reviews every year.
Here, so how I organize this. And that really helped me think about how I'm talking about how that's really good. That's not always. I think in the practitioner very, very recently, so this is a quite intimidating thing. We write about yourself, yeah, like that. Yeah, but everybody wants you to be successful, and that's what, like, people told me that when I got here, and I didn't. But yeah, they really do. We're really all rooting for you and they'll cost you and give you support. So I hope that culture and that it's showing up my tour. That's why she's making it out here from the side. I know I should take right and it is just so don't forget.
Right, it's 1:34, so thanks for being here, good luck, and, come back to the TS, come back to the picture.
Great, thank you. I'll have a few notes for you. I'll send them all to you later today via email. Have a great rest of your Friday and fantastic weekend. Good to see everyone. You too. Thanks for coming over. Great job on the panel. Great example. I like the visuals too.
That is one of my core things. Like it has to be something visual.
It's memorable.
It is.
Yep.
It's funny, you know,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Every concept is attached to it.
Excellent. Thank you.